think we can start. So I wanted to welcome everybody to this event. My name is Carlotta, and on behalf of Bay Area Italian Events and my partners Gisella and Isabella, I would like to thank you, of course, for being here, even if virtually, with us today. As I asked you before, for the people that may have joined now, we kindly ask you to put the microphone on mute so we can avoid background noises. And of course, there will be a Q&A section at the very end, so you can ask all the questions you want. And in the meanwhile, if you need to ask something to us or communicate during the event, please use the Zoom chat, and one of us will, of course, answer you. So as you already know, this event is the occasion to present the first novel of the independent Italian writer, Irene Perali. And as Bay Area Italian Events, we are really, really proud, and we really wanted to host this event because all the three of us, so me, Gisella, and Isabella, we could all be the heroines of Irene's book. Followives is the title of this novel, and even if all the characters are invented, Irene is able to describe a situation that is really real in California, especially in this part of California that is Silicon Valley. And this is to say the phenomenon of women and wives, of course, that are willing to abandon their countries to and their professional careers to follow their husbands abroad. Irene will not be alone today to discuss this topic and many other themes of the book. So please let me introduce our three guests. Elisabetta Ghisini, Professor of Practice at Hult International Business School. 𝗵𝘃𝗲𝗏𝗪, illustrator, and she's also the illustrator of Irene's book cover. And Lilly Red, an international wedding photographer. But before starting with the presentation, I would like to introduce a special guest that accepted to open this event with welcoming speech. Her name is Sheila Pierce Ortona. She's a writer, a journalist, a mom, and above all, she's the wife of Lorenzo Ortona, the Consul General of Italy in San Francisco for the Northwestern area in the United States. So welcome, Sheila, and thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you. Buonasera a tutti. This is such an honor to be here tonight in these surreal times that we're living. And I wanted to give you the backstory of why I'm here. My husband Lorenzo is the Consul General of Italy in San Francisco for the Northwestern area of the United States. He was initially asked to introduce Irene's book. He often has the pleasure of introducing fantastic Italian initiatives like this one in San Francisco in the Bay Area. However, when he understood the theme of Irene's book, he thought it made much more sense that I introduce it. I completely agreed. I'm here to support both Bay Area Italian events and the publication of Irene's book about spouses like me who have been faced with both the challenge and the opportunity of following their husband to another country due to his job. I chose to move to Italy from New York when I was 25 to pursue journalism. During that time, I met my now husband, and the idea of moving around the world then sounded adventurous, exciting, and cool. After 8 years in which I had been living, working, reporting, and writing in journalism from Rome, my husband entered the Italian Foreign Service as a diplomat. In the past 14 years, we've moved 4 times and lived on 3 continents, always with 2 kids and a dog in tow. We have lived in Rome, Brussels, Tel Aviv, and now for the past 4 years in San Francisco. In an age of parenting where we give so many choices to our kids, and in an age where we ourselves are fortunate to have choices in our own careers, it is not easy to have so little say in where we end up living. At the start of every move, I cry because I can't even imagine having to start all over again. But yet somehow I do it every single time. There's some twisted element to the challenge of all the obstacles that I clearly thrive off somehow in some weird way. But it's mostly thanks, in large part, to many women like you who are listening tonight and have been in similar situations, who dry my tears and inspire me to move forward. I can relate to many of the characters in Irene's book. In many ways, I'm an American version with an Italian twist of all of them. And that's why I wanted to be here tonight to support Irene for her unique eye and colorful imagination, but also for having written in a language that is not her mother tongue. While I've been living here in California, I have had the privilege of representing my adopted country of Italy while I'm actually living at home. That's not entirely true because I grew up on the East Coast, but you get the picture. Due to my husband's job, I'm now representing a country that has become my adopted home, a country that I know and love. In my role here, I have had access to a side of my own country that I would have never seen if my husband hadn't been posted here for his work. I now see America through Italian eyes. As a result, I think it's my responsibility to relay to the rest of the world the remarkable drive, intelligence, and curiosity I find as underlying common traits of Italians living in California. And there's something about Italians living in California that has struck me. Irene and the organizers and panelists of this event fall into that very category. The Italians I have met in California have una marcia in più, or loosely translated into English, they don't cruise, they speed, often in 6th gear. They are determined, adventurous, open-minded, ambitious, practical, and brave. I believe that those attracted to California today possess a pioneer spirit, which may have started with the gold rush, but has now transferred to Silicon Valley and other outstanding sectors here within technology, science, and academia. It is tough to follow your spouse in his career. I have had to give up opportunities in journalism that might have taken me elsewhere, but what I have gained are incredible stories, connections, contacts, and life experiences for a book that I'm in the process of writing. Irene is an inspiration to me for that reason. Opportunities come our way if we let them, but I believe that there are 4 things we need to do as we have the privilege of traveling around the world in order to make them happen. I bring these things up because I think Irene and the characters she writes about in her book nail them. Number 1, we need to learn other languages and try to assimilate within the cultures in which we speak them. 2, we need to be open to taking advantage of seeing windows of the world which we wouldn't be able to look through if we had stayed at home. 3, we need to pursue a passion that is transportable and that is completely our own. And 4, we need to carve out time for ourselves to reflect on how much we juggle and offer gratitude to those who support us in solitude. Irene came here as an engineer and observed many other women like herself who had to start over and rewrite her story according to where she was living. In so doing, she wrote a fictional story of her own, which reflects what many of us go through when living outside our homeland. I hope that her book will inspire anyone listening tonight that you don't have to be one thing in order to do another. Often being yourself while observing others turns into the most interesting story of all. Allow me to introduce our author Irene and support her in her wonderful work of fiction, which might just be based on or inspired by all of our stories. Grazie mille.
Grazie a te. Thank you, Sheila. That's so true what you said. And of course, thank you for your passionate words I'm talking, I'm Italian, of course, so I'm really moved by your speech. So thank you again, and we are really honored to have you with us today. So please stay connected and feel free to intervene during the whole event. So now it's Irene Perali's turn. Irene, as someone of you may know, she's an engineer, and she moved from Italy to California in 2015. And once here, she rediscovered her passion for writing. And after almost 2 years of hard work, here we are talking about her first novel. So welcome, Irene, sorry, or Irene, American pronunciation.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, I haven't heard my name said Irene for a while. I'm officially Irene, so you can call me Irene. I even like it better. So.
Okay. So
yeah.
let's say with Irene. So welcome. Yeah. So first of all, first question for you: what's the meaning of the term followife, and did you invented it?
Yeah. So the meaning is pretty obvious. It's follow and wife. Mm-hmm. So it means a wife who follows. And I invented it. The original title of the book was Followers. But then I Googled it and I found that there were already several books with same or similar title. So like Followers, following the followers. So I thought that I needed something unique, so that when one would search for my book, would find it. So I came up with Followives. Actually, making up words is one of my, it's something that I do even with other words in my life. So I find it really amusing.
Okay, so we can say basically that you invented this term, and from now on, we are authorized to use it in our daily life. And speaking of followives, so you are not a followife, as we said. You came in the US by yourself, thanks to your engineer job. But why you have decided to write about followives, and also how much of yourself have you put in this book?
So I am not a followife by definition, but the decision of being here wasn't 100% mine. 5 years ago, I was in the condition of potentially become a followife. My boyfriend at the time got a job in San Diego, and we decided to move to California. And then eventually, after many thoughts, it was a very difficult time of my life where I put all the aspects of my life on a scale. And I decided that I didn't want to go to California, and I didn't like California, and I decided to stay in Italy. But then after 3 months, I changed my mind, and I really wanted to move to California at any cost. So I found a job here and I moved. And then once I moved here, I met several women, but also men with wives. And I became very interested in their stories. Every time I meet a person who is not from here, I always ask about his story, his or her story, because every immigrant has an interesting story. I think if we are here, there is something that happened in our lives. And I found all these stories very inspiring and also very different from mine. And I kind of understood why I came here, by what was the main difference between myself and them. And the main difference was that they really loved their husbands. And how much of myself is in the book? I have to say a lot. It's not autobiographical, but it's very personal, and it's inspired by my experience. I can identify myself in most characters, and many people who already read it told me that they can see me in a lot of character thoughts, even though every emotion and events are exaggerated. And many things that happen in the book didn't really happen in my real life. So if you know me and you read the book and you are wondering if I did certain things, no, I didn't do them. And I don't think the same things with the same intensity. But yeah, I can identify myself in most characters, men included.
Okay, so basically we can call you a mixed follow wife.
Yeah, in a certain sense, yes, or maybe unfollow wife.
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Another word that you invented right away, right? So you're both an engineer and a writer. We have to say that it's two very different jobs, right? And so how they go together, can you explain us?
Yeah, sure. First, in my opinion, they are not very different jobs. They are actually very similar, or maybe I make them very similar so that I can do both things and be quite effective at both. So for example, maybe not many people know that writing a book is not really like that you wake up and then you open your laptop and you write and then it's done and it's the book. No, it requires a lot of planning and a lot of organization and method. And this I learned during my writing classes in San Francisco. So you really need to think about the plot before you even start writing, and you need to think about how the characters interact. And this is very similar to when I do a project in engineering or I need to start something new from scratch. So you do the planning and then you execute on the plan. And also once the draft is written, now there are so many cool tools online that allow you to analyze your book. So you can basically take your manuscript and turn it into a plot, which is really amazing for me. It's super satisfying to see some numbers that tell me something about my book, and you can do the statistics of the number of words that you use, or when the characters appear in the story and when they interact together. It's really the analysis of the mathematical analysis of the book. So I used an engineering approach. And on the other hand, also engineering is not really, or at least the kind of engineering I do, and I work in technology development, is not really about understanding things, but it's more about creating things, and it requires more creativity than one can actually think. And it's really like writing a book. You kind of know where you want to go, so you know the end of the story, you know some intermediate steps, but you don't exactly know how to get there, and you discover while you are writing or while you are discovering new things. So to me, engineering and writing are pretty similar activities.
Wow, that's interesting, because as you said, the common thinking, the common imaginary is that you sit down and you just start writing, right? But there's a lot of study and method behind it, you just told us. So let's move a little bit to one of the main topics of your book, which is immigration. Like your Followives, you emigrated from Italy. And so the question for you is, which were the obstacles that you found to integrate in this American society? And of course, how much do you miss of your home country?
So first, I have to say that the first year, the first months weren't as hard as I expected. I found Americans very, I felt very welcome. And I think Americans are very used to people with a different culture and with a different accent, fortunately for me. And I found so many people who helped me, and I didn't even know why. Was why are you even helping me? And some of them are actually here, so thank you. The obstacles, maybe more than obstacles, I would say the challenges came later. Once I settled and I realized that this wasn't an adventure anymore, it was my real life. And I wanted my real life to be good or almost like perfect. I started to feel a sort of imposter syndrome. And I talk about that in the book because I wasn't feeling adequate, or I wasn't feeling I was deserving my job and the responsibilities I got, because I was comparing myself to the other people. And Americans are very confident, and I am very insecure. And even if they think they are insecure, they are still very confident. So the big obstacle for me was to that I was always comparing myself to Americans, and I knew I will never be one of them because I moved here at 28, so I'm definitely far from being an American. But still, at the same time, I was getting far and far from Italy. Like, for example, after 2 years, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know the songs, the summer hits, the Italian movies, and the news. And so I started to feel a little bit disconnected from everything. And of course, I miss people. I miss the fact that I'm not there for the important milestones of the other people's life. And I talk about that in the book as well. One of the characters goes back to Italy at some point and visits her best friend who had a baby, and the baby is already 1 year old. And she said, "How come I see your daughter for the first time and she's already 1 year old, and I wasn't there when she was born?" And even if they say it's like you are here, it's not true, because I'm not there, I'm here, and it takes 24 hours to go back. And I actually felt closer to my friends and family during this shelter in place. I've been calling my best friends every week, and even my brother called me. We never called each other during normal times, so it's kind of a bittersweet situation for me. I'm really sad that this is gonna end, or all these calls are gonna be less frequent than before. But yeah, I miss Italy a lot.
Yeah, I bet you're right, and I bet a lot of Italians right now feel like you feel, especially in this situation. So we will see. Let's talk about the main message, the messages that you wanted to spread with this book. So for all your heroines, it has been very difficult at the beginning to embrace the new lifestyle. But you found a happy ending for each one of them. So what do you want to communicate with this book, Irene?
So the happy ending depends on the point of view. It's an happy ending, in my opinion, because at the end of the book, all characters are like all the women are happy. But I will leave it to the interpretation of the reader. So the message I want to give with the book is really that it's very difficult to plan what is gonna happen. And that's the reason why I chose to tell 5 stories and not just one, because I wanted to show that with similar beginnings, you can end up in like the stories can evolve in very different ways. And I wanted to give the message that every change in your life can turn into an opportunity. And it's really up to you to take this opportunity and to turn it in something meaningful. I feel oftentimes I feel overwhelmed by articles or I don't know, the TV, like trying to tell you what to do to be successful or to be happy, life lessons like you need to push yourself, and then others say, no, you are enough, and then you need to meditate, no, you need to do this. And I really wanted to give a message of freedom, that there are really no rules to be happy in your life, and many different variables that you can leverage to achieve happiness.
Wow, that's a really strong message of freedom, I would say. So which are your next projects as a writer?
So my current project is the translation of the book. So I'm writing it in Italian, and I owe this to my parents and my close relatives, or all the Italians who don't feel comfortable reading in English. And then I actually already wrote the sequel of this book before I wrote this. So my first book was the story of one of the characters. So if you read the book, you will notice that one of the characters is less developed than the others. And I promise there are no plot holes. It's intentional and it's very clear. And then this is because I have the side story of this character, who is a little bit different from the others. And this would be hopefully my next novel.
And do you already have a date for it?
No, but considering the time it took to me from the draft of Followives to the day I published it, and considering that now I learned so many things on the way, I can estimate that it's going to be ready in 1 year.
Okay, sounds good. So we will wait for it. Thank you, Irene. We will talk with you again later, of course, but now it's time to involve our guests into the discussion, let's say. So first of all, I would like Marta, Lily, and Elisabetta to introduce themselves. We will start with Marta Pilosio. So Marta, you are as we mentioned at the beginning of this event, you are the illustrator of Irene book cover, and you have been also a Followife before finding your way here in California. But California is not your first foreign country where you have lived, right? So tell us more about your story.
Hi, everyone. So correct. I didn't start as a Followife, to be fair. I was working as an archaeologist in Italy, and it was already a precarious situation, but that was after the 2008 crisis. So I had to face like one of the big decisions of my life. So dream job or independence. And I chose to be independent and moved briefly to Ireland, which I really loved. It was a great country to live in. But then I got a job offer in Scotland. So I moved there, still by myself, and I started working in a small destination management company. And it was in Edinburgh that I met my now husband. And when he got a job offer to California, it was the time for me to make the second big choice of my life, which was choosing between the country I really loved, because I was really having a great time in Scotland, and the person I loved. And even in this case, I chose the latter. And so I started thinking about my options. And so I initially applied for a student visa because we weren't married at that point. I got accepted, and so I accomplished 2 certificates here in San Francisco, and which gave me the possibility to go on an OPT visa, and so finally starting working again. Even here, I was working for a destination management company. For those who don't know, it's basically a travel agency for travel agencies. So I was working in product development and creating tours for agencies to sell them. What happened is that after a while we got married, and both my husband and I got a green card. So at this point, after 2.5 years in my American job, I thought, okay, now I have the chance to try and do something I really like. And so a few months ago, I quit my position. And I really needed to gather all my courage to do that. I would probably have never done something like that in Italy. But so yeah, I quit my position to start this new adventure as a freelance illustrator, because it was something I really wanted to do. Even working as an archaeologist, I was drawing the archaeological finds, and so it was already something that was in my mind. And so now I'm like acquiring new skills, I'm building my portfolio, and of course working with Irene was a great opportunity for me to get really started. And so we'll see how it goes.
Wow, thank you, Marta. Lily, you are an international wedding photographer, and you are well known around the world, and today is your 4th or 5th, it depends how you're seeing it, you're watching it, wedding anniversary. So first of all, congratulations.
We made it.
Yeah. So you have an interesting story, because actually you started as a follow wife, but then your business grew so much that your husband had to leave his job to help you with yours. So can you tell us more how things went?
Of course. First, I want to say thank you to Irene for this book, because I can really relate to any of the character, and I feel like a piece of myself inside. So thank you so much. You know how much I love it. And for all of you, my name is Elisabetta, but for everybody, my name is Lilly, and I'm an international wedding photographer. I am from a small little town in Italy called 𝗙𝗲𝗟𝗪𝗏, not too far from Lake Como, but it's like 5,000 people, nobody knows about anything, and the mentality is very, very close. This is where I grew up. Very, very interesting. 8 years ago, I quit what was my full-time job, and I decided to visit my sister in the Middle East, in Qatar. And there is where I met my American boy. This is how I like to call him. So from Italy, I moved to Middle East, and then I moved to San Francisco, which for me was a huge thing, because you know, it's like from this small town, what was going to happen in San Francisco, I have no idea. I was from one side super excited, but from the other side, my mind was spinning with like, what if I miss so much my family? What if during the night I want to call my best friend, and I cannot because of the timing change. So many things that they could stop me. But I say to myself, you cannot feel guilty to leaving your family, to follow your love, and to pursue something in your life. And so I knew that in California there was this American dream. I knew that is an open culture, no judgment, especially with my job. I was looking for this freedom to pursue my career and finally be myself. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. So I moved in San Francisco with what became my fiancé. And I start to explore the city. I literally spent the first month doing nothing besides walking around and try to move my feet a little bit by myself, exploring the beauty of California, knowing the people, embracing this open mind, open culture. And I was like, wow, the American dream is true, which it means that nothing comes easy. But if you work hard, you can get it. So that was for me the time where I realized that, okay, that's the time where you have to take your photography business that I was started in Italy. I said, like, that's the time that you have to do it. You have to do here, even if you know that your English is not good, even if you know you're going to make mistakes. But the big things that I realize in US, that the mistakes and failure are just things to learn. So you you grow from that. And compare, like in Italy was like, oh, you failure, like change your job. Now here like you failure, learn and do it. So, and those more small little doors and open to me, more I open the door, more other door open. And now you can really find me everywhere in the world, photographing wedding. And the best part is that I got so busy that my husband in March 2018 has to quit his engineering job to follow me around the world and in Italy. Like I'm so happy to go back in Italy to photograph wedding.
That's wonderful, Lily. Thank you for sharing your story. So, Elisabetta, you arrived in California before everybody else here, and you are a renewed professor, and you are also the president of the Comites in San Francisco. So tell us more about what brought you here in California back in the 90s.
Yeah, so what brought me here was work, and then I stayed for love. So technically, I am not a follow wife, although I eventually became one. I came here because at that time I was working for an international management consulting firm, McKinsey & Company, and they offered me a transfer to San Francisco, and I was single, and I said, why not? And I enjoyed my time here, and of course I met the person who would eventually become my husband. I had to go back to Milan, which is where I'm from, because again, work-related issues. McKinsey wanted to have me back, blah, blah, blah. But then we engineered the situation so that I would move permanently back to San Francisco, still within McKinsey. So it was one of those rare circumstances in which love and work magically coincide. So it worked out. Technically, I'm not a follow wife, but then there have been so many other situations later on in life in which I did become one, because there's no question that, you know, I made choices that like Sheila was alluding to before, where family came first. But after McKinsey, I made other choices, and now I am teaching at a local university, and I'm also a consultant. And I am teaching and am consulting in cross-cultural communication, so I have a foot in the two cultures constantly, pretty much all the time. And so I can only relate to all the issues that have been mentioned. About the challenges that people have felt. You know, the first few years are just a honeymoon, or the first few months are a honeymoon, and you feel like everything works out perfectly. And then you realize that the cultures are actually different, and the work cultures are actually different. And this is actually proven in all sort of research on cross-cultural communication. So that's my story. That dates back to the 90s, and I feel like the grandma of the situation, but I can attest that the issues are always the same.
You're not, and we will have time to go deeper inside your job and what you're doing right now, which is really connected to the themes of this book. So thank you, Elisabetta. Let's move a little bit inside the book and the themes that Irene has described. Irene, can you please read a quotation from your book that may help me introduce the first questions for our guests?
Sure. So the part of the book I would like to read is the first part I wrote, even if it's in the middle of the book. And I think it's one of the key questions that comes up when you read the book. Okay. Aurora stays silent, chewing the same piece of pasta for a minute, which feels like an hour, without swallowing it. Are you mad at me? Did I do or say anything wrong? Lorenzo asks. No, it's not your fault. It's just that life here is not how I expected it to be, Aurora replies, and a single tear flows down her smooth cheek. Why? I thought you were eager to have more free time to dedicate to your hobbies. The point is not that I have more free time. Now all my time is free. My hobbies are my full-time job. If I wanted my hobbies to become my full-time job, I would have turned them into a job when I was in Milan. Would you be happy without a job and just with hobbies? I don't know. I was never really passionate about things outside of work. The only thing I had was the dance studio, where I was only going every week because I wanted to see you. Your hobbies have always been more important than mine. Do you mean that my job has always been less important than yours?
A strong one. Thank you, Irene. So the first question for Elisabetta, Lilly, and Marta is why are often women to abandon their career to follow their husbands? And in Irene's book, we see that the 5 heroines struggle a little bit to conciliate love and career. So my question is, how did you manage to do that in your life? We will start with Elisabetta first.
I think like for me was really fundamental, and that my husband has a food job that, you know, can pay the rent in San Francisco and the food. Meanwhile, I was able to focus fully in the wedding photography. So he know that he want to keep this job in order to being able to, for me to pursue this photography job. And he also knew that at some point he's going to quit his job. I'm sure that he knows. So it's very important, but is something that we know it wouldn't last forever as an engineer job.
Okay. Elisabetta?
Well, I think it depends on the industry you work in and the type of job you have and the part of the world you live in and the kind of legislation that is in place in that part of the world and whether that supports families or not. I think in the United States, it's particularly difficult to combine work and family, more difficult than it is in other parts of the world, like, for example, in Scandinavia or in France, where there's legislation that makes it more possible. We also, because the maternity penalty is a real thing, and it was definitely a bigger hurdle in the 90s, despite the existence of family-friendly policies, which were really paid lip service to more than enacted in earnest. And I'm hoping things are changing, things have changed, but the reality of the fact of the matter is that, you know, we keep talking about this topic, so I don't know how much they have changed. And also, I want to add that the whole mythology of the lean-in, you know, is a myth, as Michelle Obama famously said, and I quote her words. She said, "This shit doesn't work." I'm not the one saying that. She said that. You can't have it all at the same time. So it's very difficult for everybody to make it work at the same time. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about this all the time, right?
Right.
So how did I make it work? I don't know. You kind of wing it, and it works at some periods of your life, and it doesn't work at other periods of your life.
Right. And what about you, Marta?
So I agree with the others, and I think that the social and economic aspect is still relevant as of now. For me, it was a bit different. It was a matter of priorities. So it was easier for me to leave a job that wasn't my dream job to help my husband to follow his dream and do like something he really wanted to do. I mean, for me, it was actually more difficult to leave Scotland than to leave my job itself. So finding a balance here between career and love, I'm not really sure. I'm still trying to figure it out after more than 4 years.
Okay, thank you for all of you for being open and honest in your answers. My second question is about immigration. That we already know it's a theme in Irene's book. So you all moved from Italy to California in different times and different moments of your lives. Which are your obstacles, the obstacle you had faced as an immigrant in a foreign country? So maybe for Marta, not only in California, but also in other countries, since she moved before in other countries. If you want to start answering the question.
Yeah, I think that wherever you go, you will find something that challenges you. I know that people have issues with weather, others have issues with food. For me, coming here, it was mainly two things that were issues. One was the bureaucracy, so getting a visa, it's really difficult. They're very strict. There's a lot of paperwork, so you can really get stressed about it. Even because you know that if you don't get your visa, your partner, your husband might still get it and you get left behind. Or you come here on very unattractive visas that don't allow you to work and don't allow you to develop as a person. The other thing that was really difficult for me here was the loneliness, because I found it was more difficult, at least for me, this is very subjective, to make friends, partially because San Francisco is very tech driven, so it's not exactly my principal interest. And partially because everyone is very busy. There's a really fast-paced lifestyle. So even like getting together with someone requires a lot of preparation. You need to make an appointment 3 weeks before. And this really results in a lack of spontaneity for me.
Okay. Lily, what about you?
I feel like I have the same issue, let's say, about visa for sure, because it's like it wasn't easy, also because my husband is American and I'm Italian, and so we had to stay for a good 5 months apart, and it was hard. The things of not making friends, it happened also to me, but on the other side, I was able to focus more on the business. So I became a businesswoman. Before I was like I called myself a spoiled girl in Italy. Now it's like, you want something, you have to work for it, no time to make friends. But another big issue for me is that I miss tremendously my family and my friends. That's the other side of my heart.
Yeah. And what about you, Elisabetta?
Well, for me, it was cultural differences. Even though I have lived and worked in other parts of the world, mostly in Europe, but still cultural differences were a big thing. Like not knowing how things work in the office, not knowing exactly what to say in meetings, how to give a presentation, and presentations here are very different than in Italy. So cultural differences for sure. How to invite somebody out for dinner or for meetings. And then networking was another thing. I didn't go to school here, and therefore I didn't have a network of friends to draw from, friends and colleagues and sort of close professional acquaintances, which is why I am launching a network of female professionals in the Bay Area. And if you're not called Rete Rosa, only Italian female professionals. And if you're not on it, you will be. Myself or the assistant project manager, Camilla Morello, if she's here, say hello, we will contact you.
Thank you. Wow. Very excited about it. So you touch an important point during this last answer. So the working environment. How is different, let's say, how is different California, like vacation destination, and California, like place where to live in, and how different is the working environment and to safeguard your work-life balance, because we know it's an issue here, especially here in the Silicon Valley. Lily.
I completely had to adjust my mindset. I think that's the only thing that's the only, seems easy to adjust the mindset, but it's hard. It's hard, but once you get it, I was like, okay, I'm on point. I feel like I'm in the right place. And if you love it, you do it. And it's part of your new life, your new routine, like working, like I take a lot from what is around me. I'm like a sponge. It's like I see so many successful business, and they say, you know what, I can do it. And maybe if I was in this Italy's more mentality, they say to me, oh no, you can, oh, you photography is not a job, I would never be able to do it. So I'm very, very happy and glad about this American culture and mentality.
Okay. Marta, what about you?
Well, for me, it was a big cultural shock. So I found everything was very different from Europe, even if they say that San Francisco is the most European of cities. From the small things like, I don't know, happy hours that start at 3 p.m. and finish at 5:30. I never managed to go to one of them because I would come out of work after 6:30. Right. To the big things, you know, like you see a lot of social inequalities here. There's a really big contrast between the people who have a lot and people who have nothing. So there are things that really can upset you. Mm-hmm. And also the work environment I found can be really frustrating from time to time because I'm a very direct person, and I had to learn that you cannot be as direct with colleagues here. You need to run in circle around something a lot before you can get to the point, which for me is really unnerving, especially as I worked in a position that required quick decisions. So, and also I find that the work-life balance is definitely leaning towards work. Mm-hmm. So this doesn't really help.
Okay. Elisabetta, you were talking about the working environment before.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a book about it, and there's a lot of research on this topic, that the cultural differences are significant. And the fact that we all speak English very well, at first we all tend to believe that, you know, the cultural differences don't exist because we understand and everybody understands us. But then after this grace period that I alluded to, after the first few months of honeymoon, you're expected to behave as a native. And there's no question, I mean, culture is not an opinion. Culture runs in your blood, and there are three determinants of culture. One is family, school, and society. And our family and our schooling, for the most part, are Italian, and therefore we are, you know, strongly influenced by this. From the concept of time, again, as Marta was saying, happy hour at 3 o'clock, or, you know, just being late 5 minutes is not tolerated, or having a deadline that slips by just one day. What's one day? But one day is a big delay here. So the concept of time is a big difference. The way feedback is given, everybody says great job, but what does great job really mean? Is it really good, or is it just a saying? So cultural differences are significant, and I see it in my work and with my students all the time. You just have, the image I like to use is that you have to sort of switch your mental chip. Imagine you have an Italian and an American chip in your brain, and you swap them out while you are on the plane.
Nice suggestion. So I see that there's a lot of Italian people watching us tonight. So I'm curious. I know I said the Q&A question is at the end, but is there anyone that would like to maybe share some thoughts or their stories? Don't be shy. We have three guests that open up with you. So just let us know at a certain point if you want to share something with us. And of course, I will ask my partners to make a sign to me. So thank you to our guests, and we will talk with you later during the Q&A section, and we will move on. We will go back to Irene because it's time for the raffle. So as you may know, Irene has prepared a basket with all your names in it, and she will pick up, yeah, there she is, ready for you. She will pick up two names, and the people that will be picked up they will receive, they can choose between receiving a digital copy or a paper copy. And we will send more instructions via email in the following days. So don't worry about it. Of course, you have to be present to receive the book. So please, if you hear your name, just say I'm present, or just use the chat, and we will know that you are the winner. Otherwise, Irene will pick up another name. So Irene, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Go.
So the first person is Trish Forsman.
Trish, are you connected?
Yeah, we can see her.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow, congratulations. And you will have the chance later to say if you want a digital copy or paper copy. Let's go with the second name.
The second name. Francesca Simone.
Is she connected?
I'm sorry, what is that?
You won my book.
Okay, look, I already bought it, so please give it to somebody else. Absolutely, I want to buy yours.
Let's do one more then.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Go ahead.
Clarice Mazur. Are you here? I know she already bought it as well, but maybe she wants one more.
Are you here?
Can you repeat the name, Irene?
Clarice Mazur.
I don't see her here.
Okay. Let's do another one. Liliana Lubrano.
The name sounds Italian.
Yeah.
Liliana, are you connected?
She's not here.
Okay, let's try again.
What's happening?
Sono qui.
Oh, ok.
Però sono qui con il nome del mio ragazzo.
Ok, perfetto. Allora poi you can contact us again.
Sono col nome di Sean.
Sean, okay, sounds good.
Grazie, sono contentissimo.
Thank you so much. So congratulations to all the winners.
Oh,
and,
speaking of, sorry.
Yeah,
I'm really excited. That was really interesting, and yeah, that's it. I was not prepared to talk.
Thank you.
I'm gonna buy the book anyhow.
Oh,
then you can give it to a friend. The one
yeah,
that
and I'll buy it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. So congratulations to all the winners, and of course we will get in touch with you. So you will, we will give you instructions how to get the book. So back to you. Do you have any questions for our guests? I've seen that Deborah wrote in the chat that she can share her double immigration story. So this is your time if you wanted to share your story, or for the other guests, if you have any questions, you can use the chat or just raise your hands with the Zoom like button to raise your hands. So we are here, and our guests are here to hear your story as well, and ask and answer to your questions.
So do you want me to speak?
Hi, Deborah. Yes, welcome.
Ciao. First of all, complimenti. I'm so excited to get your book, Irene. And
thank you.
And it's been wonderful to hear everyone's stories. I think we all have a lot in common. I actually did it 2 times in my life. Once going to Italy, and then became a follow wife there after being a fiercely independent career woman. And it was just crazy. But anyway, and then bringing my Italian family back to the United States, my husband and my 2 children that I had in Italy. And I have to say that everyone who's talking about, you know, all the social differences and everything, it's the same. I call myself part of the limbo club. I think everyone who has lived in different places and who knows them intimately is part of this limbo club. So we never really fit in completely, nor in the country we came from, nor in our new country where we want to live. It's always kind of like a 1 foot in one place and 1 foot in the other place. And it's a gift though. I mean, it can be kind of strange and you can't really explain it to most people. Maybe this group, yes. But most people that you meet, they don't really understand, you know, both of your lives. Mm-hmm. But in the end, it's a gift. It really is a gift because we, like you said, 𝗓𝗙𝗃𝗪𝗃, we have something more than most people have. And yeah, so and the interesting, Marta was telling about the office. A lot of the things depend on the generation and depend on the era in which you go. I went to Italy in the 80s. And so I was finding what you were finding here, back there then, about things being different. And what were you saying about, was it about the office and about?
I was saying that you cannot be as direct as I would have been. Yeah,
that's right. And
so there's a lot of like going around the topic before you can actually say what you want to say.
So I found that very funny because in Italy, I was in advertising and I was working in the agency, and I was American and I came from New York. And so I was very direct. And I didn't understand this beating around the bush, you know, in a very flowery, wonderful way, Italian way of like telling everything and then finally getting back to the point. And so when I was very direct, my colleagues would say to me, Deborah, you cannot be so honest. You cannot be so direct. You have to come around. So it's exactly the same, but just a different country.
Thank you so much, Deborah, for sharing your story with us. Are there any other questions or someone that want to share something? Nope. So I think we are done, and I wanted to thank you, really thank you for their presence to our special guest today. So first of all, Sheila, that made the welcoming speech today, and of course Elisabetta, Ghisini, Lily, and Marta that have shared their stories, their wonderful stories with us. And I wish Irene all the best for her future projects.
Thank you.
Don't forget to buy her book on Amazon. And of course, we are sending the link for everyone on the chat, so you can go and click on it. And I don't know if Irene, you want to say something to close up?
Yeah, so thank you very much I didn't expect to reach 50 people, honestly. I was expecting like 10. But so if you have some other questions that will come later, feel free to contact me on Facebook or using the contact form of my website. I'm always happy to hear new stories, or also if you want to write a book and you want to learn more, I'm also happy to help doing that. Or when this shelter in place is over, we can even like hang out and meet in person. I'm always looking for new friends. I think I thought I knew all Italian people here, but now I realize that it's not actually true.
Maybe
people I didn't know.
Maybe we do an aperitivo or a
yes.
happy hour at 6 o'clock, not 3 p.m.
At 3 p.m.
Sounds like a really good idea. Okay, so, and of course, on behalf of Bay Area Italian Events, I would like to thank you, all of you, for attending today. And let's stay in touch. Check our website, Bay Area Italian Events, to stay updated on our future initiatives. Unfortunately, we know that this lockdown is still long, but promise we will keep you busy. So thank you again, and ciao.
And thank you to Italian Bay Area Events for organizing.
Grazie. Grazie a tutti.